Hey, Joshua, Content Marketing Media. So today we're going to talk about how signals could just ultimately change your go-to-market motion dramatically. And with what Clay has released, there's some really obvious things you can do, but I also think there's some not so obvious things you can do that will really make a significant difference in your outbound motion. So just going to walk you through a couple things. First, with signals, you probably know that by default you can do job changes, new hires, job postings, promotions, and news and fundraising. But I don't think a lot of people realize what Clay's done here with some of these custom signals. So if you click custom, over here on the left, you can see very specifically a whole bunch of different other options where you can monitor followers, engage with prospects, posts, etc. So we built some of these I want to show you, but just want to show you the capability. And then ultimately, we're going to come back to this one that says monitor data with Apify Actor because that just opens up a whole plethora of different things that you can do. So first, I want to just show you some of the ones we built. If you look at let's see, get interactions with professional posts. All I did here was come in and put a few of my posts in here, and you just put in the URL of your post from LinkedIn, and immediately you're getting the interactor name, their profile, what they did, and then if they've made a comment, what the comment is. So this is a really good lead source, and it doesn't require like any connecting to LinkedIn or anything else, right? Which makes it super powerful because you don't have to worry about running into risk and anything like that. What Clay does with LinkedIn is built with LinkedIn. So it's a nice reassurance that you don't have to worry about getting banned, and it's just a simple solution that can be pretty powerful for monitoring any kind of intent data. The next thing I want to talk about here is just some of the stuff they did build in. So, like, here's an example. We're pulling trust radius data as well. And then we did some posts with Trigify, which is another social engagement tool. I don't think we built out the workflow yet, but that's another tool you can build in. But really want to talk about Apify and why this just opens up the door for use cases in Apify. So if you look over here on the right, Apify has a bunch of actors, right? We use a ton. They have a whole store, the ones you see on the front page, right? Website crawlers, website scrapers. I went into news and just wanted to look at some different ones in news. And I saw the Y Combinator scraper, which was pretty cool. But I found one I thought that was a pretty cool use case just to show you. So the Hacker News data. So this extracts Y Combinator's Hacker News. And I went specifically for the job postings, right? And so I ran it just to look at the data. And you can see right here, these are job postings on this site. So look, I reach out to and engage with SaaS companies a lot. That's where my clientele lives. So super informative signal for us. And just an example of how I could turn this into a quick signal table. So I'm going to go into Apify here. And as you see, I've imported this data. And it was really that easy because I created a connection to the Apify actor. Now, what's neat is because in Apify you can set up schedules, right? I just set up a schedule in this, and I want this actor to run. I set it up. I said, hey, here's the URL I want you to start at. I've got all my usual options. And now I have a schedule for this to run. And then because I can set a schedule in Clay here on the left, now this actor can update both in Apify and Clay as often as I want to, right? So when you think about signal databases, I want you to think differently than, look, Clay's given us a whole bunch of really awesome capability, which is amazing. But now with Apify and other capabilities, you can essentially call any API in the world and gather signals. And then as those signals happen, you can do things. And this is why the connection to Clay is so important. And so if I'm using outreach, right, I can now take this signal and create an outreach campaign. If I'm using Instantly, which we use a lot, right, I can just add these leads to Instantly. If I am using Hayreach, right, then now I can add this lead to a Hayreach campaign. So the concept here that I'm talking about is gathering signals and then taking that signal to do your outreach in real time or at whatever frequency you set up. I think a lot of people have done this. This is not a unique concept. The orchestration layer of what Clay is built in is what's unique, right? And giving us the ability to kind of have this tied to all the other enrichments that we already use. We're big fans. We use Octave every day. So imagine if I scrape this signal, I then put this into a sequence agent. I enrich the person. I enrich the company. Um, and on and on and on. What I can do versus our typical or most companies' typical approach to outbound, which is you go out and you get a lead list, you enrich it, you do some cool stuff, and then you send an email. Like this is a different concept, and the Clay enrichment or build through signals to actual signals that you choose, right? The signals they build, but the signals you choose. I mean, you could even set up Google search results, RSS feeds, monitor stuff from your Airtable, mix panels, calls from Gong. Like just think about calls from Gong. So your team, they have a sales call. You look for keywords or you summarize that sales call with AI and you push that into a Slack channel to your boss, right? Like all of that is possible with signals. And it's just taking, um, outreach and approaches to a new level. And Clay talks a lot about GTM Alpha, and I think this is how we're going to get to GTM Alpha. I mean, the idea of we can just enrich a lead list, build a company list, do lookalikes, do anything we want, let that table sit, and then just monitor it with all kinds of signals. I think it's game changing. I know there's a lot of other signal vendors out there. I just don't think those signal vendors have been able to bring this data into such a structured, integrated play, right? Like having, a lookalike audience of, 1,000 companies that are just like mine and being able to, or companies in my ICP, and being able to, run job postings and promotions and news and fundraising and 3,000 actors from Apify, any API call I want, pull in very robust buying intent data, engaging with social posts. I mean, all of that is just a portfolio builder of how you reach, your ideal ICP. And I think especially if you are in a small TAM, and I've talked to these prospects before where they have 1,000 ideal companies, right? And so this is the way you address that. You take it from every level. And really, I think the important thing is you're limited to your imagination. I mean, let me prove it to you. You go into actors, you go into Apify. I mean, I built all kinds of actors for clients, for ourselves. But here's one that look, browser use, PitchBook, CB Insights, but here's one right here that I think most people don't pay attention to. It's just a simple API request, right? And so if you can write an API call, now you can call any API, schedule that, and then turn it into a signal, right? And then turn it into a campaign. Lastly, I'll talk about like what can you really do to make a difference in the business with signals? So think about this, right? You import your actor. Let's go back to this. Obviously I could scrape out these are the company names that are hiring. I turn that into a Clay row, and I'll just show you like real quick how I would do that. So just text, and then actually let me do this. We'll just add a formula, and then we'll just say title. Take the first word. And boom, I now have all the company names just like that, right? So there's all the company names. It's clear by here. And then I could turn this, I can enrich, enrich the company, on and on and on, right? Enrich company, just like that. I could add more identification, LinkedIn information, just on and on and on with this simple source, right? So the point being is maybe I just want to end by sending it to Salesforce, right? So if I want to send it to Salesforce, then if I could type, now I could just send it to Salesforce, right? So up it'll come. Here's all my Salesforce, HubSpot. Again, send any API, receive for any API. So I think Signals is game changing. I can't wait to really kind of implement this for our clients, for future clients. But we're going to be doing things differently around here, and I'm excited that Clay is just helping us make that better.